Thanks, sir. So halfway through the introduction, I wanted to tell Nick, dude, it's just all on the next slide. You can just kind of take a break. I do want to stress about the cocktails. This is a convention center. They're not going to be rolled out early. I'm not keeping you from the drinks. I am distracting you until it's time for the drinks. But they won't let you take them. Yeah, please don't. Just stick around. So if it starts to really fall apart around slide 12, then fine. So let's talk about this. First, who am I? As Nick said, Director of Information Governance at Dominion Consulting. A group I used to work with back in the day, they came to me and said, hey, we want you to come back, lead the practice. We get to go visit some of your old clients. Some of whom I was like, yeah, they're still broken. So let's go fix them. I'm happy. More relevant to why I'm here is I'm the author of the blog Word of Pie. I've been doing that blog for about 9 years in the industry. It got me the gig at AIM. It got me the gig at Alfresco. And it has paid the bills for quite some time indirectly. I am an opinionated loudmouth, and we're going to get into that today. So Nick called me last winter and said, dude, I want you to keynote. I'm like, awesome. What's the topic? He's like, whatever you want. I'm like, great. So the theme is going to be pigs in space. I don't know what the topic's going to be, but this is the theme. Because, let's have some fun with it. I mean, look, we've got the fearless leader who's like, I want it done. This is what we're going to do. We're going to solve this problem, and it's going to be huge. This is us. A lot of us, the assistant who's going, but sir, I don't think it works that way. We need to think about this. Maybe we should talk to the rest of the crew. Maybe we should check with headquarters before we start the war. And then here's the techies hiding, trying to make it work and go, wait, you want us to do what? On what budget? Here's SharePoint. I mean, that's really this guy right here. And I was like, this is great. I can totally make this work. Because when all else fails, everything is just a journey. Information governance is a journey. We're going to get there. We're going to make it work. I can stretch this out no matter whatever topic I want to do. So I like to hike. And so as I'm hiking on the Appalachian Trail in Virginia, because I'm just doing different segments, I'm thinking about this topic. And for months, I'm like, what am I going to talk to? And I talked to a couple other keynoters. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, because I don't want to talk about the same thing. And also because really, I just need an idea. And we start talking, and I kind of agree on this whole transformation thing. And I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. And the problem is, I want to be positive. I want to give a positive message because I've been bearing bad news the last few times I've talked. And, the reason I'm doing bad news is because, look at the stats. Nobody owns this stuff. Nobody wants to take control. Other was number 1. All right, at 30%. So you can imagine the number 2 was only around 25%, and it went way downhill from there. We're not actually decreasing the paper. This is crazy. At this point, we should at least be not generating more paper. I understand if the warehouse is still full, but can we, decrease it? Not bring it in anymore? And we're not even using workflow. We've digitized it, and now it's just, we're still walking around from table to table or sending emails. We're not doing anything. We're not taking advantage of the technology at all. And then, less than 50% have information governance rules, roles, metrics, or policies. Now, I want to stress the word or here. They don't have rules, they don't have roles, they don't have metrics, they don't have policies. This isn't less than 50% are missing something. People are missing all of these things. And I'm like, but I want to be positive. So, and I was thinking, I was at the beach this summer. And as is my wont, I love to build a sandcastle. I'm an engineer at heart. My family's full of engineers. I want to find a way to beat the waves. And I know it's impossible, but I want to put it off as long as I can. Walls, ditches, and trying to put it together. And I realized what I've really got is the perfect metaphor for what we've been doing, is we are successful through personal sacrifice. We get in and we block the waves of chaos. And this works until you get bored and you want to go eat, or the sun's too intense, you're getting a sunburn and someone insists on suntan lotion or shade. So, I mean, there are successes out there, but it's from personal sacrifice. It's on people who are smart and putting it all into it, and that doesn't scale. That can't be extended. We can talk about change management for another 20 years. And it's important. And if it's not there, it's going to fail. But if it's there, it's still probably going to fail. So I reached a quick conclusion that this is not going to be about a journey. The journey just isn't working. Forget it. We're done. We're not doing the journey. We got to do something else. And the real question is, now what do we do? Well, if we haven't been doing the journey, it's after 20 years, it's wandering through the desert. We've got to think of something else. Well, what is working? What is getting traction? I mean, it's not renaming ourselves. We rename ourselves again and create a new term, and we're just going to alienate more people eventually, just under a new name. Let's think about digital transformation for a second. And what they're doing right now. Now, what digital transformation, and John Newton talked about it earlier today, and I was slightly upset that he stole some of my stuff. But what we're doing when we do digital transformation is we're trying to transform the business in order to humanize the user experience. We're trying to automate, but not for the sake of automating or just getting rid of the boring stuff. It's so that instead of doing the boring stuff, I can work with people. I'm not trying to reduce staff. I'm trying to be more effective and put a human face on what we do. I want to interact with people. I want to get things done. I don't want to be tracking information, tracking things down. All right? And it all boils down to humanize. It's about making it more about people. The digital takes away the busy stuff so that we can do what we're hired to do. People aren't getting jobs to be records managers. They're not getting jobs to go and send emails. They're getting jobs to address a problem, to bring their specialty, to do what they may have studied in college, maybe, or later, and do that. My job is to help clients figure out what to do. Other people are trying to, run a records program, but that's not about, organizing files. It's, well, how do we do it? What do we do it? How do we make this easy for people? Sales guys want to sell stuff. They don't want to sit there and classify a contract and record it and check all the boxes. They just want that commission check. So, when we're doing digital transformation, what are they essentially doing though? They're mapping and automating processes. So when I said one of the things we tried to do was we tried to connect the interactions with the website with the marketing automation tool, and which will send out all the emails, and track that down to your purchases and the training, and try to make it so that you had a coherent experience. So if you went to the part of the site about records management, we might send you an email a week later saying, hey, we saw you went there, we have a webinar next week. And then if you went and registered, which is in another system, we didn't keep bugging you about it because you'd already registered. But we have to automate that process so people aren't getting annoyed, because it's really easy to automate this stuff and annoy people, at which point they just shut you off. But it's mapping and automating the process between systems. And I'm like, wait a second. This is what we've been trying to do for 20 years. We scan the document, we automate the process, we route it around. We were talking about FOIA earlier in this room. One of my first projects when I was doing case management was correspondence tracking for the Air Force. This request would come in to do something, sometimes a FOIA, and it would take 2 weeks to get to the action officer to do something. Because the Pentagon is a really big building, and it had to go to multiple offices. And it would sometimes spend maybe up to a day, and then it would wait until someone said when they're going to that part of the building before they could hand it over. And they knocked it down to 2 hours, which, considering it had to go through 4 or 5 people, that was pretty good. But we were building and automating systems around the content management systems and not more holistically around all the enterprise applications. Because data doesn't just live where we are. It lives everywhere. So why can't we leverage this? Why can't we take this cool stuff that we've been doing, designing the solutions, mapping it out, and take this to these digital transformation efforts and use that to start managing and governing information? And the reason we've had trouble doing this is because when we walk in the room, this is what the faces they make. A lot of us aren't welcome in these rooms because when we come in, we're going to be adding requirements, complexity, and cost. And all they see when we walk in that room is this. We aren't welcome. We've been trying to do this electronically for decades. If we try to do it in their project, the first thing to do is like either cancel the project, I say, crap, they found out. Or they're going to shove us off and say, you're not welcome, and do it in secret. And the thing is, businesses need to do these projects to be successful, to evolve, and be competitive in the new world. Because otherwise, upstarts are going to come along who are starting from scratch and do this. So we need to focus on the value. Best donuts in the world, just for the record. We need to focus on the value. When we go in and talk to people, we need to say, hey, no. I'm not here to talk about records management. I know I have in the past, but this time I mean it. And actually mean it. So, but what value can we do? I mean, what is our value prop to these people? Historically, we've been a cost center and a risk management. Map the information and fill the gaps. Nice gap of information. We may or may not know where all the information is in an organization, but we know how to find out. We've been doing it. We've been tracking, mapping information flows. We've been mapping processes. And half the time is so that we could take control and put it into our system, but why not just take those skills and map it out from, so the client comes in and they put in a request, and so that captures here on the website. And then who needs to work on it next? Well, the person who's going to process it. And then fill in the systems, the map, who needs to do it, where it needs to go, how do we communicate with that person? Put yourself in their shoes because you're customers of someone. You've had the frustrations. We've all dealt with United. We always put yourself in those shoes. Figure it out and map it. There are gaps. The more you map, the bigger you say, hey, wait, what's this big area over here that no one's got stuff? Where's it go? Determine the systems of record. Old school term, coined by AIM, it still matters, and it's one that resonates. Look, we have all these systems, and the information's flowing around, and it's important for it to flow around, but where's the one that we say, this is where we go for the truth? Help them map that out. It says, hey, when the CEO is going to call for a report, where are we pulling that data from? Just map that out. You're adding value. You're helping solve the problem. You're taking that part of the work off of their chest. They don't have to worry about that. They're worried about getting the systems integrated and talking to each other, and you're helping figure out not just what information goes back and forth, but where it lives, where the master part is. Because when we get down to it, we have to capture information and classify it before we can do anything else. If we don't capture it, if we don't classify it, we can't govern it. And if we can capture and classify it, this is where it happens. In these projects, this is where that information is created. That's where you want to capture it, upon creation. And it's not coming in always as content. It's a web form. You're storing that in a database. So I remember a lot of projects where we're sitting there going, oh, so we've digitized this. Yeah, and you enter stuff in the web form, and how do we store it? Well, we transform it into a PDF and store that in the records management system. And I'm thinking, but the data's still in the database, right? He goes, yeah, and that's the sort. That's what we're going to work off of, right? He goes, well, yeah, but we might, look at the PDF later, or we might print it out or mail it to someone. I'm thinking, why? Isn't the whole point to get rid of this? I mean, let's change how we think about it. A document is information in context, but it doesn't have to be a piece of paper. All right? It's the web form. It's the old app. That's the context. Why do I need to print that off? protect the record, protect the data definition that tells me what each field means and what each table means, but then move on. Sometimes paper is important. You mail something out to someone as an official record because they requested it or you're required by regulations, then fine. Totally keep that piece of paper. But it's subservient to the main piece of data. This is actually at a client site, an old client. They had a Pandora's box, and it said, "Do not open." I asked, "What's in there?" And they're like, "I don't know." And the person who I was walking with did not know. Our job is to educate. We join the project, we talk about security and PII. PII, for those who don't live it, is personally identifiable information. Your name, your social security number, your date of birth, or sets of information when combined together can give you your identification, your hair color, your eye color, your height. All that stuff individually is fine, but combined is actually PII. Educate them on the risks. It should be easy. There's a new news story every week, if not every day, on a security breach. And you don't want to make them so paranoid they don't try anything, because if they do, they'll still be out of business. What you want to do is say, all right, let's figure out what are the risks, what can we do to manage it, and think about it from day one. Once again, it's not about keeping it as a record or retention. We haven't gotten to records or any of that. What we're dealing with is, how do we manage it? How do we make sure it's safe, that it's under our control, so that our systems are sharing information, but we're doing so in a way that doesn't risk the privacy of our company's information, of our clients' information, of our employees' information. And it's a consideration. And then they can look at the risk and go, oh, we can take care of that. Oh, we'll just encrypt it when it's being stored. That's an easy thing to do at the beginning. If you go back and say, oh, you're right, we should have encrypted everything. Well, how long will it take to encrypt the 40 terabytes of data we already have? It's going to take a while. The stronger the encryption, the longer it takes, though CPUs kind of pace that out. So it's still going to take a while, but think about it from day one. It's sometimes easy to do if you think about it early. Just say, hey, what do we need to do about that? Don't propose a solution. Make them understand what the risk is, because it's a trade-off. The business has to make that decision. Our job is just to educate and make them aware. Whatever you do, move the scary things to the backlog. You don't need to do records management on day one. Get the system live. Get things going. Get it progressing. Say, hey, one day we'll need to do with this, but not now. Because let's make the business more profitable and solve this problem. Later we can impose this rule. Because once again, if you don't capture it and you don't protect it, there'll be nothing to manage, nothing to govern. Get that done first. Get rid of all the stuff that's going on email, digitize the enterprise, transform it, and then worry about the big, bad, scary thing called records management. One process at a time. You got to link it all together. Our digital enterprises, and right now it's, what's digital enterprise, what's an analog enterprise, and John Newton went into that today at lunch. And, I don't really care. I don't care what the difference is. I want the processes to work together. And if there's a reason for it to be paper, there's a reason for it to be paper, but not out of habit. Let's get the information into the hands of people who need to use it into a single system at a time, so that they're focused on doing their job, and they can do their job. And they don't have to go through a multi-step process to update, save, or modify information. They hit save, and it saves it. Now, does this involve new technologies? Probably. Does this involve ditching some of the legacy tech? Maybe, because some of them aren't innovating like they used to. Some of the newer guys aren't innovating sufficiently, or they're just replicating what the old guys were doing. You got to find flexibility. You got to find organizations and vendors that have open APIs, which is a very technical term, and more technical than I really wanted to get. But it's really the ability to communicate and share that information and share those processes with other systems. Because if you're going to go digital, not every action needs to be initiated by a human being. If something happens in this system, it triggers something in this system. There's a business rule for that. Make it happen. Make it automated. Don't have a 3-month project to make it happen. If they're a modern system, modern being in how they implement and design things, not in age. This can be done and prototyped in a matter of a week. If sometimes more, sometimes less, depends on how capable, how good the documentation is and how good your staff is. But it can be done. Hell, if I can figure it out these days, then you have staff who can figure it out. And if you don't, then you need to, go grab a guy straight out of college or a girl or whoever. Someone out of college is like, I can write some basic code. It's not complex. They have hooks in all these systems. One process at a time, linked together. And at the end, you're viewed as an expert who brings value. You have helped find the information. You've mapped it. They know what they have. When someone says, do we have this piece of information? They can say yes or no and be confident that they're correct in that answer. Because that's really what our job is as information governance, is to know what we have and be able to say definitively what we have. And if we want to keep something, we can definitely keep it and make sure that that happens. And have high confidence when someone comes in to ask us that that's done. But the first is know what you have and where it is. Bring that value. And aside from this little red meter thing, which might be dangerous, but the point is experts were helpful. So let's review. A little bit about this picture. That's my daughter's toys. My sons have been on previous slides. She didn't get a slide, but she got a toy. This is Flagler Beach in Florida, which pretty much is gone from Michael from the erosion. I'm hoping it might be back so I can go back and have vacation there one day soon. But as we look out on the future, look out on the horizon, what do we need to do? What do we need to keep in mind? And one thing's for certain, we need a new approach. What we've been doing for 20 years hasn't been working. And it's not just a tech problem, it's an approach problem. We need to completely rethink how we as professionals approach the rest of our organization and work with them. We don't want them to be scared of us anymore. Find these new efforts. Lead with value, not with extra requirements. Don't make their job harder. What they're trying to do is already hard enough. Not all the tech supports it. And they can't update every single system in the enterprise at once. Don't make it harder. Facilitate. Help them out. Stay in the loop. Earn their trust, not their fear. And once again, and I can't state this enough, and I've been pounding on this point for years now, if we aren't involved in the capture of information, we cannot govern it. We always focus on the governance and the end result, but if we don't have it, it doesn't really matter. That's what our goals are and our jobs are, and that's what we're supposed to be trying to do. So, thank you.